Okay, so this video today is going to talk about Esther. And Esther has an amazing story that I want to share about bravery and beauty and really, again, being in a position to change a nation, to change the world, to change the future. So as a little recap, if you're not familiar with the book of Esther, take a look in your Bible. Esther's in the Old Testament, and I'll just give you the abbreviated version, but I want you to read it, please. Read the whole book of Esther. In fact, read it first and then watch the movie, The King and I. No, it's called One Night with the King. One Night with the King. It's a wonderful story. It shows how Esther was a Jewish girl. She was with her uncle Mordecai, and they were living in an area that had a lot of Jews. Basically, they were fleeing from captivity. The Babylonians had torn down the temple in Jerusalem, and so there were many Jews in this area. The king, King Ahasuerus, also known as King Xerxes, but King Ahasuerus, he at this time was powerful. Think of power such as Alexander the Great. This king had so many nations and so much land and such a huge army that he could do just about anything that he wanted to. One of the things that he did was he liked to have parties and show off all his splendor. So he was having this party, which lasted for quite a long while, many days, many weeks actually. And with this party, there was drinking, there were women with his queen, there were men with him, and along the way, several days into this party, he requested that his wife, Queen Vashti, come to him. Well, she knew that he had been drinking, and she did not want to go. She for whatever reason, she did not want to go, so she refused. Now, when this happened, that was grounds for death. You could not tell the king no. So Queen Vashti had put her foot down, which at this time was just unheard of from any woman, let alone the queen, to say, no, she's not coming. This likely embarrassed the king, but then it also got him and all of his men thinking, well, if she can say no and not be submissive, then other women could do the same. So instead of killing her, he ordered her to never see the king again, basically just saying good riddance, and had her leave the palace. Okay, so the party continues, and now the king is on the search for a new woman. With this, he has the power to take any woman that he wants. So he sends an edict throughout the town to say all these women of this certain age group should come to his palace. And with that, they went through all of these rituals of bathing in oil and all of this just pampering to look beautiful and presentable. And one by one, the women were paraded in front of him for him to decide if he wanted to marry that person. Well, he eventually chose Esther. She was beautiful, and it was divine. God had put her in that place for a reason. And I ask you, do you ever wonder if God's putting you in a place for a reason? So here's Esther in the palace, and she overhears this plot to kill the Jews. This is the abbreviated version. There's more to the story, but she overhears this plot by Haman, one of the king's men, to kill the Jews. And Haman had arranged with the king to have his approval, his seal of approval, that he could kill all the Jews in the nation. The king did not know that his wife was a Jew. So now she's faced with the situation. Does she speak up and say something? Or does she sit by quietly and let all of the Jews, including her, be killed? This is what she does. So her uncle, Mordecai, who's her guardian, he had learned of this plot, and he couldn't just go to the palace and talk to Esther, so he had to send messages back and forth. But this is what happens in Esther chapter 4. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city, and he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. And in every province, wherever the king's command and his decree reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting and weeping and lamenting, and many of them lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's young women and her eunuchs came and told her, the queen was deeply distressed. She sent garments to clothe Mordecai, so that he might take off his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Then Esther called for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had been appointed to attend her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what this was and why it was. Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her and command her to go to the king to beg his favor and plead with him on behalf of her people. And Hathach went and told Esther what Mordecai had said. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law, to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter, so that he may live. But as for me, I have not been called to come to the king these 30 days. And they told Mordecai what Esther had said. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai, go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, nights, or day. I and my young women will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. Those are the two sayings that are quite famous. If I perish, I perish. She was talking about how if she went to the king, she could surely die. He had not summoned her to come. And it wasn't like it is today. She couldn't just walk into her husband and say, I want to talk to you. She had to wait until he called for her to come. And the other saying is, for such a time as this. And I wonder if we are gathering together for such a time as this, so that we can learn and have a biblical foundation to stand on, so that we can be on a rock that will not be shaken, and so that we can save a nation, so that we can do what God is asking us to do. Perhaps we've been put in a certain place or position for such a time as this. I wonder if maybe where you're at, whether it's at a workplace or a school or in a certain family even, do you have a voice? Maybe you don't think you do, but maybe you actually do. Esther would not have thought that she would have had a voice. She would not have thought that she could have done anything to reverse a decree by the king that had already been sent out. That was uncalled No one could go in and tell the king, hey, you made a mistake. You need to pull that back. It just didn't happen. But that's exactly what she did. And with that, she was able to tell the king of Haman's plan to destroy the Jews and that she was a Jew. And the king listened with an open heart. He listened, and he did reverse that decree so that no Jews were harmed. In fact, Haman and his sons were all hanged because of their deceit, because of their intent. So I wonder, what can we take away from this? I do think that we're here for such a time as this. Never in my life have I seen the world in the shape that it is in today. Never. And I think most people can agree. There's evil in this world, unprecedented amounts of evil. And if we don't do something, who will? Now, I'm not saying to go start a revolution. I'm not saying that, but I am saying read your Bible, pray about it, and ask God what you can do. Ask Him if there's something that you need to stand up for. There's so many options of things that we can do, that we can speak for, that we can do, that we should not do. Ways that we as Christians can take action and still do that in a Christian way. So I'm asking you to think about that. Think about it and pray on it. And I'm looking forward to what God is going to do.